9. Cranky Tom. When we get to Maddie's house, Henry is sitting on the bench by the garden. "Where have you two been?" "Camping. We saw animals," I tell Henry. "I said we were raccoons." Henry raises his eyebrows. "Really? Really?" "The door is open," says Maddie. "Your door is always open, Maddie. I like the sun. Do you know you have a little rabbit eating your lettuce?" "I do," says Maddie. "That's Peter. He comes through a little space I made in the fence at the far end." "Peter?" I say. "You mean Peter Rabbit?" Henry and I burst out laughing. Ellie goes over to Henry for ear scratching. "Eleanor," says Henry. "How's Cranky Tom?" asks Maddie. Henry shakes his head. "Cranky? Not good since Rufus died." "Why don't you take Ellie over for a visit?" says Maddie. Henry looks at Ellie closely for a moment, then at me. "Would you do something for me, kiddo?" "Sure. What?" "I have an old patient that I call Cranky Tom. His dog Rufus died 2 weeks ago. Tom's missing him. Would you bring Ellie to visit him? I think it would help. We can walk there." "Sure. Ellie can make anyone feel better," I say. "Go ahead," says Maddie. "I'll clean up and get things ready for tonight." "What's tonight?" asks Henry. "Camping," Maddie and I say together. "I see. Want to come?" I ask Henry. "Of course not," says Henry, making Maddie laugh. Henry and Ellie and I walk down the road to Tom's house. "Raccoons?" asks Henry. "Raccoons," I say. We come to a small house set back from the road. "Here we are," says Henry, "Cranky Tom's house." We walk up the dirt driveway. Henry opens the door. "Tom," he calls. "What?" "I've come with a visitor. 2 visitors." "I don't like visitors." Henry smiles at me. "You'll like these visitors," he says. He beckons me into the house. In the living room is a very old man sitting in a very old chair. "What?" says the man. "This is Kiddo," says Henry. "Meet Tom." "What kind of name is Kiddo?" "It's my name for him," says Henry. "My name is Robert," I say. "I knew a Robert once. He was very bad." "I'm not him," I say. Tom laughs for a long time. "And this is Ellie," I say. Tom peers at Ellie, and his face changes. "Oh, lovely. Here, Ellie." Ellie walks over to Tom. He scratches her behind the ear. He strokes her head. "She has hound in her," Tom says. "Look at that beautiful face." Tom stops patting her, and Ellie puts her head on his knees. "Oh, nice girl," says Tom. "My dog's name was Rufus." "Better name than Robert," I say. Tom laughs again. Then he looks up at me. "I miss him," he says softly. "I'll miss Ellie," I say. "Would you like Ellie to visit you every day? We're staying at Maddie's house this summer. She's my grandmother." "I like Maddie. I like you. And I like Ellie. That would be nice," says Tom. I take a dog snack out of my pocket. "You can give her this if you want. Be careful, sometimes she thinks a finger is a snack." Tom feeds Ellie a snack. "Rufus always bit me by mistake," says Tom. "We'll come again," I tell Tom. Tom looks closely at me. "I like that." "So would I say. You're not cranky at all." Tom smiles. "Oh, yes, I am," he says. Henry, Ellie, and I walk back to Maddie's. "Thanks, kiddo." "You're welcome." I wanted to take his blood pressure. I knew it would go down when he was petting Ellie, but I didn't want to disturb him. Remember that. Dogs are good for blood pressure. I look up at Henry. "I wish you would come camping with Maddie and me." "Maybe someday I will." We'd remember Henry's words later. 10. Friends. Maddie and I carried a food basket through the meadow, up the path through the woods, to the top of the hill. Ellie jumps and twirls on the way up. She likes camping, I say. So do I, says Maddie. So do I say. It is late afternoon, and the light is flat, coming through the trees. What are we eating for dinner? I ask. Hamburgers, says Maddie. I put in an ice pack, and buns and pickles and chips and sliced tomatoes and some of my baked beans with molasses. There are cookies and cornbread, she adds quickly. What? I ask. Cornbread, says Maddie. For breakfast? I ask. Maybe, says Maddie. Our tent is there in the clearing. I unzip the flap and make sure the lantern is inside with our sleeping bags. Maybe we'll see shooting stars tonight, says Maddie. I think we should sleep outside. You mean here, under the sky? You'll like it. It's the only way to see shooting stars. I'll start the fire. I want it to burn down so we have some nice coals for cooking. Maddie starts a small fire and takes out the black frying pan. The fire smells good. The wood smells good. The light fades. Soon we'll see a sunset. Ellie stands by the woods looking at something. Her ears go up. Ellie, I say quietly, the way Maddie has taught me. Ellie sits and watches 3 deer, 2 does and a fawn, come out of the woods. They look at us. They look at Ellie. Then they walk about eating leaves. Ellie sits down watching them. She shakes a bit and whines. It's all right, Ellie, I say. She's not scared, says Maddie. She's excited. Maddie turns to look at the deer, but suddenly, as I watch, she loses her balance and falls over the log. Maddie! Maddie is lying cheek down in the dirt and twigs. The log has rolled onto her leg. She doesn't move. I shake her arm. Maddie, are you all right? Maddie makes a groaning sound. She tries to turn over. My foot, she says. Can you lift the log off me, Robbie? I kneel next to her and lift the log away. Maddie cries out. I'm sorry, Maddie, I say. It's okay. There's a pillow in the tent, she says. Can you get it, and I can sit up against the log? I run into the tent and find a pillow. I put it behind her, and I put my arms under her arms to pull her so she can lean against it. Her face is pale. Can you take off my boot, Robbie? Maddie, I should go get help. I should get Henry. Just take off my boot, says Maddie, her voice sounding shaky. I've never heard her voice shaky before. My sock too, if you can. I undo her shoelaces. I loosen them. I pull off the boot. I try to be gentle, but Maddie cries out again. It hurts her more when I take off her sock. And then I look up, and behind Maddie, I see a black bear standing there, watching us. I look quickly at Ellie. Her ears have gone up again. She whispers, Ellie, come. Good girl, I say as softly as I can. Ellie growls. Come, I say again. Ellie comes over to me. I hold her collar. Maddie, I whisper. I'm all right, Robbie, she says. We'll figure this out. Maddie, I whisper again. There's a bear behind you. Maddie can't turn around to look. Get the cornbread, she says softly, in the basket, wrapped in foil. Can you hold Ellie's collar? I ask. Yes, says Maddie. Very slowly, I go over to the basket and look inside. There is a foil package. I carry it to Maddie. Unwrap it, says Maddie, her voice sounding weaker. Put half of it away from us, where the bear can see it. I unwrap the bread. Stay, Ellie, says Maddie. You can take the cornbread near the bear now, says Maddie. I've never done anything in my whole life harder than what I'm doing now. I move over slowly, the bear watching me with small eyes. Such small eyes for such a bear. I put the cornbread on the ground. I move back to Maddie. I can feel my heart beating. "What is the bear doing?" asks Maddie. "Sniffing," I say. Maddie smiles a bit. "My friend." The bear moves in a kind of lumbering walk over to the cornbread. He lies down and eats. I see Ellie shaking, and I reach over and hold on to her collar again. "Ellie's shaking," I say. "Excited," says Maddie. "The bear is eating," I say to Maddie. "Robbie, I can't walk. My whole leg hurts. My head hurts too. We'll have to get Henry. You'll have to go." It's still light out. I think of leaving Maddie, and I know I can't do that. "No, I won't leave you." "We have to get Henry," says Maddie. "I know." Maddie is sweating now. "I'm feeling dizzy, Robbie," says Maddie. I go into the tent and get her sleeping bag and cover her. "Thank you, Robbie," she says, her voice low. And then I know what to do. "Maddie?" "What?" "I'm sending Ellie," I say. Maddie's eyes are closed. "Ellie can do it," I say. "She knows Henry and knows how to get there." I take a notebook and pen out of my pocket. I write a note. "Henry, Maddie is hurt. She can't walk. We're camping at the top of the hill. We need you. Bring a sleeping bag. Kiddo." "Ellie," I whisper. "Come." Ellie looks at me. With a small sigh, she gets up and comes over. I take one of Maddie's shoelaces and tie the note to Ellie's collar. I give Ellie a snack. "Ellie, Henry. Go to Henry," I say. Ellie looks at me. Then she looks at the bear. "Ellie, Henry, go now. Go." My voice is sounding as shaky as Maddie's voice. But Ellie goes. She runs down the hill a ways and turns and looks at me. "Go! Good girl! Find Henry!" I call. Ellie turns and runs farther down the hill, not looking back. Soon she's out of sight. "Henry will come," I say to Maddie. Her eyes are closed and she doesn't answer. I don't like that. I want her to talk to me. I go into the tent and get my sleeping bag. I lie down next to Maddie and watch the bear. I'm scared. But it isn't the bear that scares me. What scares me is that Maddie is hurt and she is not talking to me. "Maddie?" I say softly. "Yes," she says, her eyes still closed. I'm so happy to hear her voice that I can hardly speak. "Henry will come?" "Yes," she says, her voice faint. I look over at the bear, still eating happily. And then there is a movement right next to me. I turn. It's a bobcat. "Maddie?" "Yes?" "There's a bobcat. This can't be real." "It is real, Robbie. Touch him," Maddie says in a soft voice. "He trusts me. He trusts you." Suddenly, for a reason I don't know, I'm not scared anymore. I reach out and touch the silver side of the bobcat. I can feel his body ripple with my touch. I lie back down next to Maddie. "Has he ever been touched before?" I ask. "No," says Maddie. "You're the first." I grin. The first? Maybe I have gifts like Maddie. The rabbits come as we lie there. The raccoons come and sit on the log near us. "Friends," says Maddie softly. Night is coming. I light the lantern, but the fire still burns. We wait. 11. Shooting stars. The air is cool now, but the animals are still there. Maddie is sleeping. She has no color in her face. I hear the rustling of rabbits and chipmunks. I hear the chatter of raccoons. The sun has set. "Maddie?" I whisper. No answer. I hear a new sound. Something coming. I stand up to look. Ellie. Ellie stops at the clearing, waiting. She looks at the animals. Come, Ellie, I call to her. She walks into the clearing. Behind her is Henry. He carries his medical bag and a sleeping bag. He's wearing a backpack too. He stops, staring at the sight. The bear, the deer, the rabbits, the raccoons on the log, the bobcat. It's all right, Henry, I say to him. I start to cry then. Henry comes over and puts his arms around me. Ellie licks my hand. The animals still move away. Maddie fell over the log and hurt her foot. I took off her boot and sock. That's good, says Henry. He becomes the doctor, not Henry, touching Maddie's face, putting his hands on her forehead. Henry, says Maddie in a soft voice. I'm here, he says. He smooths her hair. You came camping, she whispers. Henry smiles at me. It's the pain, he says. She hasn't been talking. She said she felt dizzy, I say. Did she hit her head? I think so. She said her head hurt. He looks at the bear, who looks back at him. Then he looks behind me. Is that a bobcat? He says in a voice so soft I can hardly hear him. Yes? Henry shakes his head. This isn't real, he says. That's what I said, I tell him, but I touched him. He's real. Henry takes a small light out of his bag. He shines it in Maddie's eyes. Maddie tries to brush his hands away. He feels her head. She's got a bump here, he says, but I don't think she has a concussion. Very gently, Henry feels Maddie's foot. He moves it and she moans. Can you bring the lantern closer? He says. I put the lantern close to Maddie's foot. Henry feels her foot and ankle again. He sits back. She has a broken ankle, he says. Bad? Bad enough. She'll have to stay off her feet for a while. I can put a temporary splint on now to keep her from moving it, but we'll have to get her off the hill to fix it properly. Can you wait until morning? We'll have to. It's too hard to move her in the dark. Has she had water? I shake my hand. Henry touches my face. Scary, right? Yes. We'll take care of her. Henry takes a syringe out of his pack and pushes on Maddie's shirt sleeve. He gives Maddie a shot. Maddie, you'll feel better soon. I'm here. Could you get some water, kiddo? And is there any ice? We need to keep the ankle from swelling more. I go over to the food basket for water. I grab the ice pack. The bear is gone now. The deer move into the woods. The bobcat still sits by the log. His eyes shine in the dusk. Henry builds up the fire again. Did you eat dinner? He asks. I shake my head. Maddie fell before we ate. You used the ice pack for Maddie, so I threw the hamburger into the woods for the animals. Maddie made baked beans. The beans will keep, says Henry. I have nachos in my backpack for dinner, and cheese to melt over the fire. Henry and I sit next to each other on the ground, leaning against one of the logs. The bobcat is gone. Maddie's eyes are closed. Her foot is propped up on the pillow I use for sleeping. Henry has made a splint. Ellie comes over to lie next to Henry. Eleanor, says Henry softly. She found me. She pushed my front door open, and there she was. Henry strokes Ellie's head, and when I didn't get up from the kitchen table, she pulled my shirt with her teeth and tore it. Ellie did that? She wanted me to let know she hadn't just come for a visit. And you found a note tied to her collar? I ask. Henry shakes his head. It had fallen off, he says. She picked it up by the front door and brought it to me. Henry looks at me. That was very smart of you to send Ellie, he said. I couldn't leave Maddie alone, or Ellie with... I wave my hands, and Henry knows what I meant. With the raccoons, the rabbits, the bear, the deer, and the bobcat? I laugh. Henry laughs too. I'm hungry, says Maddie suddenly, and I don't think nachos are very healthy. The painkiller chart is working, says Henry, and this from a woman who once served a kid of donuts for dinner. He says louder so Maddie can hear him. He gets up and goes over to Maddie. He holds her a water bottle. A few sips, Maddie. You can eat in a bit, but not too much. I don't want you to get sick. I already feel terrible, says Maddie. A little sicker won't hurt. It will, believe me, says Henry. I'm your doctor, and a very good doctor. Listen to me. How will we get down the hill? She asks. I'll carry you, says Henry. It'll be quite romantic. Maddie blushes. I'm glad to see color in your cheeks, says Henry with a smile. Look, says Maddie suddenly, a shooting star. We turn and see the star across the sky. Then another. I told you, says Maddie. Didn't I say you see that? Henry sighs. Maddie's better, he says. Henry melts cheese over the fire, and we spread it on nachos on paper plates. He gives Maddie a small plate. The lantern light falls over the clearing, and the fire flickers on our faces. Henry? What, Maddie? Did you see my friends? Henry doesn't answer right away. Yes, he says finally. I saw them. Maddie's quiet. Robbie? She says. Yes? Maddie takes a breath. When your mother was very little, her father went away and left us. Henry and I look at each other. I never knew that, I say. Someone should have told me that. I'm telling you now. She loved her father, and he just up and left. In some ways, after that, she never quite trusted people in the same way. After all, they might up and leave too. But she had her violin, and that violin didn't let her down. She could trust the violin. Maddie took a breath. She was getting tired again. What I'm trying to say is, Maddie stops. That violin wouldn't go away, says Henry. Maddie sighs. She feels safer loving her violin, says Maddie. Do you understand, Robbie? Yes, I say. And I do. For the rest of the night we lie in our sleeping bags, Henry on one side of Maddie and me on the other. As the fire slowly flickers out, we watch shooting stars until we sleep. 12. The Truth of Me. The next morning, Maddie's ankle and foot are swollen and bruised. We'll eat what's left of the cornbread, says Henry. Can you throw dirt on the fire, kiddo? We need to get Maddie down the hill. I'd heard Maddie cry out in the night once. I'd heard Henry give her water with a pill. There are no animals today. Ellie looks for them. I look for them. We pile everything in the garden wagon, except for the tent. I shovel dirt on the fire until I'm sure it's safe. Then I pour water over it. We'll come for the tent later, says Henry. Ready? I pull the wagon. Henry carries Maddie. This will hurt you some, Maddie, he says. I know, she says. Ellie walks next to me, down the path, through the woods, and across the meadow. Maddie? Asks Henry. Maddie puts her arm around Henry's neck and her head on his shoulder. She doesn't speak. We're almost there, says Henry. At Maddie's house, Henry lays Maddie on her bed. He puts a pillow under her foot. Her arm is over her eyes. She doesn't move. I'm going to my house to get my car, he says. It's faster that way. I'll be right back. I watch Henry run down the road to his house. I carry the food basket inside. I put the rolled up sleeping bags and lantern in the hall closet. I stand at Maddie's bedroom door and watch her. I look down and see Ellie that is standing there too. I put my hand on her head. I hear the sound of a car. Henry is here. Ellie goes up to the kitchen door to look out. I keep watching Maddie. Henry brushes me into the bedroom. Maddie? What? I'm going to pick you up and carry you to the car. The passenger seat is folded back so you can lie down until we get to the hospital. Maddie takes her arm away from her eyes. What about Robbie? She asks. I'm fine, Maddie. I'll stay with Ellie, I say. Henry picks up Maddie as gently as he can. I move aside, and he carries her out to the car. I'll call you, kiddo, he calls. It'll be a while. He drives the car very carefully out of the dirt driveway. And then they're gone. We're alone in the house, Ellie and I. I feed her and take her outside for a walk. Then we sit on the bench by the garden. We watch Peter Rabbit eating lettuce. Peter is quick and steady. He finishes one row and is starting on another. I don't stop him. Maddie has lots of lettuces. We sit for a long time, but still Peter eats. Birds come to sit on the fence. The sun goes behind a cloud, then comes out again. The phone rings, and I run inside to answer it. Kiddo, you alright? I'm fine. Peter Rabbit has eaten 2 whole rows of lettuce. Henry laughs. I tell him that because I want to hear him laugh. How's Maddie? Fine, she's getting a better splint. She'll get a cast in a few days. I'm bringing her home later. I don't talk for a minute. I can't talk. And I know it is because I have been scared. Kiddo? I'm fine. I'm happy she's coming home. Me too. Henry? Yes? I was scared. Me too, says Henry. Maddie comes home with crutches, but Henry won't let her walk with him. He carries her into the kitchen. Bed or chair? He asks. Chair, says Maddie until she sits down. Bed, she says. I'm too tired. Good choice, says Henry. You have lots of medicine in you too. You might slide down the floor and become a rug. I laugh. Henry puts Maddie on her bed and comes into the kitchen. He sits at the kitchen table. I'll stay here tonight, says Henry, in case Maddie needs help. That's good. The phone rings and I answer. Hello? Robert? My mother. Hello. Your father and I have been thinking that we need to spend some more time with you, she says. Our last conversation wasn't very satisfying. No, I say, it wasn't. Henry looks at me. He knows who it is the way he knows all things. And we thought maybe you can come to London and spend time here while we're playing concerts. We can arrange for you to fly over. How does that sound? I wait a second, and in that second, I see my mother as a very young child after her father had left her. I never thought about her as a very young child before, ever. Mother, Maddie has broken her ankle and is on crutches. She needs me. She has taken care of me so far. I'm going to stay and take care of her. There is a hollow, empty sound on the phone. Is she alright? Yes, Henry's taking care of her. She tripped in the garden. Henry smiles at me. I didn't get to tell you how good you sounded when you played the sherbet, I say. I listened to Death and the Maiden on Maddie's radio. Well, thank you, Robert. That's so nice. My mother is surprised. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know how to talk about us, about how we feel, how we think, and how we are sometimes scared. But I do. I want to say many things. I want to say that I know many new truths about myself. I want to say I am an alpha and Ellie is a hero. I want to say I have fed cornbread to a bear who did not hurt me. I want to say I have touched a bobcat. I want to say I know my mother was a small child who was lonely and sad. But I can't say all these things. But there is one thing I can say. So I say it. Mother? Yes, Robert? The telephone wire hums. We are both close and far away at the same time. I love you, I say.